It's Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. Welcome to Make It Make Sense. I'm Granthermes. Today on the show, we are talking about the tens of billions of dollars that has just been given over to the Trump administration for plans for immigration and camps. We are talking detention camps, detention centers, detention facilities. We'll talk about what we should talk about when we talk about them, but also where they're being opened or are being planned to be built across the country. And it's not just Florida, although that is the one you might have heard about already. Don't worry, we'll talk about it. But before we get to that, please make sure you're following and subscribe to Make It Make Sense on whatever podcast app you listen to it on. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications on YouTube so you don't miss out on any new videos if you're a watcher there. Subscribe to the Make It Make Sense Substack, where I've got bonus content, including an article you're not going to want to miss that is going up tomorrow. It's just $5 a month. And as always, share the show on social media. It's MIMS Newspod. That's MIMS Newspod. All one word on every platform. I am at Granthermes on Twitter and Bluesky, and at Granthermes TV on everything else. All right, let's get to the episode. Hey, listener, you know what the show is all about breaking down the news in a way that actually makes sense. No spin, just real reporting and smart conversations. And as an audience, you're sharp, curious, and engaged, and I know that you value where you spend your time and money. So if you're a brand, an organization, or a cause that aligns with truth, trust, and just cutting through the noise, then we want to partner with you. Whether you're launching a new product, pushing a policy, or you just want to get your message in front of an audience that values insight over outrage, let's make it make sense together. For ad rates, sponsorship packages, and custom campaigns, you can email ads at matchbookmediapod.com. That's ADS at matchbookmediapod.com. Because the smartest conversations deserve the smartest partners. Okay, let's get on with the show. It's been a dangerous past few days when it comes to the Trump administration's immigration plans. Fully armed ICE, mostly masked agents, continued to occupy parts of major American cities, particularly Los Angeles, where LA Mayor Karen Bass shared a video over the weekend of those ICE agents marching through a prominent park in the city where there had been children playing just minutes before. ICE seemingly only doing this as a show of force and intimidation, which Mayor Bass called absolutely outrageous. And then there were 2 attacks on federal agents in 4 days. On Friday, authorities say a group of about 15 people attacked an ICE detention center in Alvarado, Texas, shooting and injuring a local police officer there, who is thankfully supposed to be fine. In all, 10 people were charged in that incident. And then on Monday, a man in McAllen, Texas, opened fire on Border Patrol agents. He was shot and killed. But any way you look at this, tensions aren't going down when it comes to immigration, and the temperature isn't going to be going down anytime soon. That's because a ton of money was just approved for immigration and customs enforcement agents and detention camps to house immigrants. Let's start there with the money for ICE. In the Big Beautiful Bill, which is now a, Big Beautiful Law. I don't think we have to call it that, but it's law now. Immigration and customs enforcement is getting in the neighborhood of $40 billion for personnel and operations alone, a nearly tenfold increase in funding for the agency. And that is huge. 10 times anything is big, especially because ICE is operating as a much more militaristic force on U.S. soil. And when you compare the funding that ICE is now going to get to the militaries of the world, it ranks as the 16th largest military of any country. It's ahead of Italy and Israel on that list, and only falls just short of surpassing Canada. And it's important to remember here that ICE is not a military force. It's supposed to be law enforcement. And the feel of those things should be different. But if you listen to Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, the plan is to increase the appearance of ICE as a military force.
Plus 10,000 more officers. Look, I've been doing this since 1984. Border Patrol's been plussed up many times, and I appreciate that, and I'm supportive of that. But when Border Patrol arrest somebody, they go in detention. Then they go into immigration hearing. Then if they get order removed, they get removed. That's all ICE's job. So our Border Patrol got plussed up over decades. ICE didn't. So now ICE finally is getting the resources they need. And, it's going to put more boots on the ground, which we need right now.
So it's really important to listen to what Homan was saying there. Not the content, but the word choice. Boots on the ground is a military framing, and it certainly isn't ratcheting down tensions between federal law enforcement and civilians. But that's only part of the funding. The other part, I think the bigger part that we've talked a lot less about, is $45 billion for new detention centers all across the country, repurposing old ones or building entirely new detention camps, which brings us to Florida. Because the administration is pushing ahead with an even more aggressive enforcement, and you might have seen or heard about something opening in Florida that the White House and Florida is calling Alligator Alcatraz. It's a repurposed airfield in a remote-ish part of the Everglades, and it's essentially outdoor-ish enclosures without proper plumbing, air conditioning, or potable water. The camp was built there in about 8 days because it was on an airstrip, meaning deportations could happen quickly from there, which is why they chose the location, but also because the area is so remote that if someone were to escape, they wouldn't be able to make it very far. Or, if you ask the president, the idea is that they'd get eaten by an alligator.
Alligator Alcatraz is the idea that if some illegal immigrant escapes, they just get eaten by an alligator or a snake or something?
I guess that's the concept. This is not a nice business. I guess that's the concept. If snakes are fast, but alligators are, but we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison, how to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this. And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%.
So let's be really clear about what you just heard. That's not a joke. That's the president of the United States happily engaging in a hypothetical in which a person in American custody on American soil who was supposed to be afforded rights under the American legal system is killed by a wild animal. It is, by all normal accounts, a bizarre thing for a president to talk about. Now, the Department of Homeland Security posted an AI-generated image of a line of alligators wearing little ice hats outside of a prison with a caption that read, "Coming soon." That got a lot of flack and was later taken down, but there is already GOP-approved merch for the detention camp. Hats and shirts with gators on them. The Florida Republican Party is actively selling them right now, which on its face is weird. It's just weird. It'd be like if your nearest state prison started selling koozies or shirts about how cool it was. The detention camp is being funded almost entirely with funding from FEMA. Secretary Kristi Noem, who, like I said in yesterday's episode, wants more control over the disaster relief agency, said the money the state of Florida spent to build and operate the camp is coming from FEMA's Shelter and Services Program, which was created under President Biden to house immigrants while they await court dates. The money is not, and this is important, not coming from FEMA's disaster relief. What's also important is that this camp, this facility, is going to cost FEMA in its first year of being open $450 million by DHS's own estimate. In 2024, the entire Shelter and Services Program for FEMA, which is funding this center, was only $640 million. But in the new spending bill that just passed, ICE is getting $45 billion for these new detention centers, and the White House is encouraging Republican-controlled states to start building their own. Here's White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller talking about it on Fox News last week.
The offer is we want to go to every Republican state. Now, of course, in a sane country, Democrats would do it too, but they love the illegals. They hate the Americans. We want every governor of a red state, and if you're watching tonight, pick up the phone, call DHS, work with us to build facilities in your state so that we can get the illegals out, we can get the criminals out.
Now, Miller is the guy behind Trump's immigration, DHS, ICE policy, the entire thing. This is his vision. And like I've said before, he has deep ties to white nationalism and spreading white supremacy. But his plea here worked. Since then, Republican leaders have been gleefully lining up to get a piece of this money or encouraging their states to take this money. The state government of Alaska said, "We don't have alligators, but we have bears." South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace posted online, "Dear DHS, we've got a swamp and a dream. Let's talk. South Carolina's gators are ready, and they're not big on paperwork," which I don't know what that last part means, but I guess you get the idea. Fox News asked 26 Republican governors' offices about building their own alligator Alcatrazes, and most were open to some version of the idea. The governors of Georgia, Texas, Idaho, Kansas all talked about plans to open other detention facilities in their states that were already in the works. Most of those will be traditional detention centers. Many of them built, owned, and operated by private prison companies like the one that just opened in northern Michigan, so the state that I'm recording from, which is not a Republican-controlled state, but that facility is owned by a company called Geo Group, and it's now considered the largest detention center in the Midwest. I'll be writing more about how private prisons are cashing in on all of this new ICE money on the Make It Make Sense Substack tomorrow. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about here is how we talk about these places, because it does matter. You've heard me say it a few different ways in this episode even: detention centers, facilities, and camps. And some people have gone even further than that, calling these concentration or internment camps, which obviously brings up images of Nazi Germany or what the U.S. did to Japanese immigrants and Japanese Americans during World War II, although some Holocaust survivors and historians take issue with the idea of calling those internment camps or those centers also concentration camps. Now, the definition of concentration camp is one that isn't always clearly defined. The U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum defines it as a site for the detention of civilians whom a regime perceives to be a security risk of some sort. What distinguishes it from a prison in the modern sense is that incarceration in a concentration camp is independent of any judicial sentence or even indictment and is not subject to judicial review. The encyclopedia definition is a little more dense, calling them centers for political prisoners and members of national or minority groups who are confined for reasons of state security, exploitation, or punishment, usually by executive decree or military order. And it goes on to say that persons are placed in such camps often on the basis of identification with a particular ethnic or political group, rather than as individuals and without benefit either of indictment or fair trial, which both of those definitions, at least in part, would seem to fit the bill for these places. Trump has issued several executive orders saying immigrants are dangerous or even an invasion of the U.S., and they don't deserve due process under the law, which makes it even harder, I think, to square the gleefulness that we've seen and are going to continue to see from leaders around the country who want to build these facilities and see them filled with people. Okay. That is it for today's episode. Please rate and review the show on whatever podcast app you're listening to it on. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications on YouTube if you're a watcher. Sign up for the Make It Make Sense Substack. It's just $5 a month. You get access to tomorrow's article that I just talked about and all the other great stuff that I've got up there right now. If you don't want to do that, please share the show on social media. It's Mims Newspod. That's MIMS Newspod, all one word on every platform. I am at Granthermes on Twitter and Bluesky, and at Granthermes TV on everything else. Thank you so much for listening today. I'm Grant Herms, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.